Sir, my boy. So first off, man, I just want to welcome the listeners and the viewers for taking the time to check out the new episode on the new platform, Inside the NeighborWood. So today's guest, my good friend Sylvester McNutt. How you doing, bro?
Doing pretty good. So today is my birthday, so celebrating life and here with you. So it's good.
Nice. Happy birthday. I know we spent some time together this past weekend. I wasn't sure which exact date was your birthday, but happy birthday, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. August 23rd. Virgo, baby.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. Yeah, so I would say we probably known each other for about 4 or 5 years, if I had to guess. And I don't know if you remember how we got connected. It was through Hype Man Kev.
Yep. Yeah,
So first off,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Now I was gonna say he either had us over at his house or it was like a party or something. Can't remember exactly like what the gathering was, but yeah, I
So
remember.
we had I believe at the time my sister was living at either Tom Scott or Sky Song, and she was having a cookout, and I think Hype Man Kel was just moving into the same complex, and like he was in transition, like getting some like a couch or something out of the elevator, and we just offered to help a little bit. So that's when we first initially helped him. You know, Kel's like he's people person from the jump, so I believe we invited him to the cookout, which was the coming weekend, and he said he had a friend that he wanted to invite and wanted to introduce to me. So I'm like, of course, we love meeting new people. My sister's open to meeting new people, so we, cook and eat some good food. So yeah, go ahead and invite him out. So I remember we first met. I believe it was probably like down at the pool.
Yep. That sounds accurate. Sounds
Yeah.
all right.
And I remember, we always, it was obvious that we were connected for a reason bigger than what we even knew, I believe at the time. But it was cool because I remember initially we connected so quick that within the next week, you and Daisy were already coming over and spending some more time with Angelina and I, and we got a chance to, kind of really catch up and, get a little bit more familiar of each other and our stories. So, that was cool, to be connected to a good couple. That's rare these days. Couples it's something that you need to cherish. Having good friends and especially couple friends that you can hang out and spend time with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's and I would even say just for me and like my own perspective, making friends has not always been easy. Like obviously when you grow up as an athlete, you always have your teammates around,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're friends. And like, it doesn't mean that you can actually have every conversation with them just because you guys are teammates or just because you guys are in class together. So, for me, it's always been cool. Like I've always shared those moments where you actually do get to like be able to talk to someone and get to know them on a different level, like beyond the surface of stuff,
You don't take them for granted.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So so what I want to do is kind of just go through we spent some not a lot of time together, but I feel like the times that we have spent together have been pretty high quality moments, and believe it or not, you've helped me out in ways and opened my eyes in ways, and we've shared some, what I would say, some intimate experiences that I always hold on moving forward. So before we get into that, I just want to thank you, just for your friendship and just receiving my wife and I, my family and I, and offering guidance, when you can, and just being a friend, someone that, we can hang out with and spend some good time together with.
I appreciate that.
Yep, already. So yeah, we met through Hype Man Kel, and then within the next week, we got together, spent some time, chop it up together, just me, you, and our ladies, which was a great time. And then since then, we've extended invitations to you two to come over here and eat. You've extended the same to us, to where we've came over to your space and spent time and ate some good food. So I know for me personally, like that's something that my family has always taken pride in. And then as I, became married myself, and we found ourselves in different countries, we love, breaking bread with other people and extending those invites and bringing people into our home. And we understand the togetherness and the unity that food brings, just to come over and eat a good meal and spend some time chopping it up, so it's been cool to spend those moments together as well. Is that something that were you kind of raised in the same way? Because I remember like my parents, we had the home to where like it was the home all my boys came to and ate up the snacks. My mom was always cooking something, so I feel like that's kind of where, that came from me. And then once I married my wife, she comes from that Southern hospitality to where she loves to cook and just loves to host people, so is that something that were you kind of raised that way as well, or how'd you kind of develop that?
Yeah, definitely. Just growing up on the South Side of Chicago, it's like the best moments is when me and my cousins would get together, aunts and uncles together, parents, grandparents,
Mhm.
and it'd be a lot of loud music, a lot of Michael Jackson, Aretha Franklin, BB King,
Mhm.
Sam Cooke, uh, just a lot of like soulful music playing.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously, they would be playing like R. Kelly, they would be playing Belle Biv DeVoe, I'm trying to think of stuff from the 90s. I used to
Yeah.
play Keith Sweat, I
Yeah.
used to play that too, because they were my elders at that point were in their late 20s and 30s. So, they
Right.
were jamming at everything that was popular at the time, Bobby Brown and all that,
Right.
and Sade. So I grew up with all that type of music playing, and we were just running around, and it was always about like the cookout. It was always about the barbecue. It was always about both of my grandparents being religious, being Christians. It was about the church, being in the church, and um, it was always like about togetherness.
Mhm.
Like that's one experience that I feel like I'm taking from my family. It's like
Mhm.
anytime that we could get an excuse to get together,
Yeah.
like we would definitely like take advantage of that. And it's something that now that like I have my own kid, something that I feel like that's changed. Honestly, I feel like that's changed a little bit with our society. I would say
Mhm.
is I feel like there's not as much of a emphasis on getting together, eating together, getting meals together. Obviously, people go out and party and stuff, but as far as like really getting together and just sitting together to chat over a meal and just have whatever conversation, whether it's like funny or
Mhm.
serious or whatever conversation, but just to be able to do that, I feel like it's so important. So it's something that I feel like I'm trying to reclaim, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in your 20s and 30s, you're in college, you're traveling, you're trying to find your way, you're trying to find your purpose, you're trying to do all these different things. And I
Mhm.
feel like as a consequence, I for sure in my life I feel like I've gotten away from setting up a barbecue, setting up a dinner, setting things up, and like I feel my soul calling me back to it right now. It's like
Mhm.
calling me back to those spaces to not only host, but to actually say yes when people do invite. Like, all right, I'm come. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, nice, nice. That's, I know for me personally, and I can speak for my wife as well, just traveling abroad and living overseas, something that me and you have talked a little bit more about as of lately, and I'm sure we'll expand on some more. But, that's one thing that I've recognized that's kind of different from, I would say, the American society, society that we've grown up in. Well, I know my parents, they always took pride in us sitting down at the dinner table and eating a meal
Hmm.
together. And, that's back before phones were where they are now, but it was just that time, like, you know, majority of the nights through the week as a child, we spent time at the dinner table eating a meal,
Right.
and just, catching up on the week, just talking about the day, just kind of chopping it up as a family, and what kind of put it into perspective for me, as I've gotten older and became an adult, and I found myself able to host and just in that space is just living overseas and seeing how much they appreciate those times, because there's several countries that we've lived in where Sunday is just pretty much off limits for everything, so it's like at a cultural standpoint, you know, a lot of these countries, they'll shut down everything on Sundays, and it'll be kind of just like a family day, you know, and it's like all the stores are closed, the malls are closed, you know, it's kind of like the whole town is closed down for this day that we are, you know, gearing towards family, you know, and family time, and that unity, you know. So that's definitely put it into perspective for me. Although I had that foundation from an upbringing level, you know, as I've gotten older and traveled and experienced these different cultures, that's something that I feel like our culture kind of lacks in, you know. And it's like, you know, we're too on the go, you know, it's too much going on. We're kind of too immersed in our daily life to where we get home and it's like, you know, we just kind of eat what we eat and kind of wind it down, you know. So I know as you look to travel more, I'm sure that's something that, you know, you'll probably experience for yourself, but I know that's helped me, and it's grown my perspective to where now I want to, you know, encourage people to continue to have those family meals and cherish those Sundays before we begin the new week.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Is honestly, I was talking to Daisy about it, man. Just slowing down. This society really does, from like a subconscious perspective, it pushes you in a place of like go, 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 go. Right. And I feel like one of the consequences of living so fast is that you skip over a lot of joy and a lot of enjoyment. And that's what I feel called to right now, is to slow down. It's like, can I hold both? Like, can I still pursue the things that I want to pursue, goals, dreams, what have you? Uh, can I still go do that? And can I still slow down and appreciate my life, appreciate conversations, appreciate opportunities, and appreciate the moments? And for me, the answer is yes. And it's just like this, it feels like this like reclamation of power, to just be like, hey, man, just slow down. Like, for example, the other day, it was raining, you know, and it doesn't rain very much here in Arizona. And so I've seen rain a million times in my life. It's not a big deal to me.
Yeah,
You know, I
being
grew
from
up in,
the Midwest, out here in
yeah, like,
Arizona, it rains. It's like, what's going on?
yeah, it's honestly not a big deal to me. I've seen hundreds
Yeah.
of thunderstorms, right? Been in them, played in them. I've done it all, right? But it's like there's this opportunity where you realize it's raining, and my son was looking outside. Now he's played in the rain, like he literally played in the rain the day before this day that I'm speaking on. And he's just like, outside, outside, I want to go outside. And so at first I didn't really want to let him go outside because I didn't feel like dealing with him being soaked and having to change him. And we're about to eat and so it was like, life is set up for you to have this like to-do list. Like, no, you can't go outside because we're about to eat. And once we eat on the time that we need to eat, then you need to go to bed because we need to get up at this time. Like, right, that's how life is set up for us. Like, we need to get things done in a timely fashion, in a certain manner. But this pulls us out of the present moment. Like, this pulls us out of the spontaneity and the beauty of the present moment. And I remember the exact words just came over my soul. It just said, slow down. Right? Those words just came over my soul, said, slow down. And so while I was trying to tell him, no, don't go play in the rain, when I told myself to slow down, I actually just opened the door, let him go out there. And it was like, it was amazing because I was able to stay in the moment and I got so much out of it. And then he got something out of it because he got to go outside and play. He took his cars out there and he just like played in the rain. And I had completely forgot that we were even about to eat food. Like I forgot that we were about to eat. And just allowing yourself to like slip into that moment, I feel like you slip into more joy, you slip into more beauty. You're slipping out of this like this this pattern of thinking of like something always needs to be done or something always needs to be happening at a particular time. And I don't know, just that little experience that I had this past weekend has really helped me with slowing down, because that's one of the things I'm trying to do right now. Just slow down.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I know for me, you know, I want to speak a little bit on just, you know, the ability of being present and being in the moment, you know, because I feel like for all of us, that's, you know, that seems like that's the key to life, you know, from how I've learned and the understanding that I've developed, you know, just the ability to, you know, understand the past and, you know, appreciate it, you know, and, you know, look forward to the future and pursue, you know, the goals and set yourself up to, you know, live the life, you know, from any standpoint that you want to live one day, but ultimately it's about, cherishing right now and being present and being as current as you can, because as you know, and one thing I've learned is that's one thing that separates us as humans, but separates us as like what would you say, like the supreme mammal, is just our ability to live in the past and live in the future, which can, can play against us in a lot of ways, So how has obviously you just said that, you're still working on that, being present and being in the moment. I want to know a little bit more about how your journey has been towards that, and I know for me, it's like I've been on such a pursuit through the game of basketball and just so kind of caught up in life, and just so many new moments over and over, day by day, like new moment after new moment after new moment, whether it's at this university or, whether it's in this country or whether it's playing in this event. So I know for me personally, along my journey, it's been relatively easy to stay in the moment, but then once I learned about what it means to stay present and in the moment, that's when, it's like I had to really focus on my routine and my practices to really intentionally keep myself in the moment, if that makes sense. So my journey, I feel like it's been pretty smooth in that sense, but staying in the moment and staying present, even while going through experiences and persevering through experiences, it's like I feel like that's the key to a lot of to kind of have a free mind and to be able to move forward relatively smooth. So how's that process been for you?
Yeah, I would say that it's something I never thought about at the beginning, of life, high school and college. You don't really think about it very much. In fact, in those moments early in my life, I didn't really want to stay in the moment. There was a lot of looking forward. And that's a consequence of being in certain environments that weren't necessarily healthy or safe. Mm-hmm. And so I was looking forward a lot to a time period where I could feel safe and where there wasn't like trauma and pain in my life and there was a lot more peace. So like when I was in that phase of my life, I was looking forward. I was just looking forward, and everything I was doing was trying to position myself to be in a place where I could find some peace. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's much easier to be in the moment when you're at peace, when you have love, when you have, good things going on, when you have something that you're looking forward to. Mm-hmm. It's much easier to stay in the moment. It's much harder to stay in the moment when you are going through a harder time, maybe dealing with depression or some anxiety, because part of it is, it's like, well, why would I want to stay here? Why would I want to stay in something that doesn't feel good? But what I've learned about staying somewhere that doesn't feel good is that it helps you process what's going on. Sometimes we won't stay in the moment with what doesn't feel good because we don't know how to or don't want to process it. But then it just lingers and it comes back, right? And what I'm speaking on specifically is like I remember when I was just going through, just a lot of depression when I was much younger. It wasn't really my fault what was causing it. It was the environment around me. Like it wasn't really my fault. Mm-hmm. And like if I could put some arms around that version of me, I would tell him like, hey, try to enjoy every little moment about this. Mm-hmm. Because there was more moments in school that I could have enjoyed. There was more moments in sports that I could have enjoyed, Like when I would score a touchdown or make a good pass or make a tackle, when I play football, it was just like on to the next play, on to the next play. It's like you never really appreciate the game. Yeah. You have a great week of practice, you finish the game, and then you're already talking about your next opponent. Yeah. Or as soon as the game is over, it's just like, okay, let's go watch film and see how we can get better. Mm-hmm. It's like even in playing sports, it's like sports is never about the moment. It's like when you're playing the sport, yeah, you are in the moment. You're not thinking about anything else. You're just reading, reacting. You're reading the defense, reading the offense. You're looking at the scoreboard. You're just in the sport, sure, right? But you're not really like. I just feel like as an athlete, you're never really in the moment because it is always what's next. What's the next schedule? What's the next game? What's the next injury to rehab? Like what's the next thing that's coming up in my body that I need to see the trainer for? And then couple that with then when I got to work, when I stopped playing sports, it's okay. I'm in survival mode, so it's like, okay, can I get $500 saved up? Can I get $1,000 saved up? Am I going to eat this week? You know, so it's just like, it's hard to stay in the moment when, you know, your basic needs weren't met. And that's what I feel like I was going through in my early 20s. So then I would say I probably reached this point around 26, 27, where I had something. I wasn't playing sports anymore, was working my job. It was going well. Um, and I feel like then once my basic needs were met, I was in a safe space. I knew myself a little bit. Then it started to become a lot easier to stay in the moment, you know, to stay actually present, like to actually be present. Once I got a little more safety and security, like in my own body, I felt a lot more. And then I would say that lately I've reached the most amount of staying in the moment because I've been so connected with my yoga practice, with my meditation practice, and then with having boundaries with my phone and like turning it off. Because I've noticed too, it's like if I don't turn my phone off, I notice I'll pick it up at random times without like conscience or without really a purpose.
Just
Just
through like
almost
the
habitually.
routine of just having done it consistently.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And so I'm trying to get in this habit of turning it off every day, whether it be for 30 minutes, an hour, a couple hours. And
Where
I need to be like,
for me, it just feels like
yeah, go
a
ahead.
complete disconnect, and sometimes that's
Mhm.
necessary.
So can you do that like without turning your phone off, or you can just go hours without touching it, seeing it, or like how do you disconnect?
I would say I was putting it like on Do Not Disturb for a while, but then I forget, I was watching some video and it was, I forget exactly the specifics of it, but it was just like, now I just put it in airplane mode to where it's like, it's just, I'm completely, because you know, Do Not Disturb, the message can still come through, the calls will still show
Right.
up. And it's like, I've gotten to a point to where sometimes I just want to completely disconnect to where I can't even receive the message. I can't even receive the call, you know. So like, let me just
Right.
completely disconnect from anything outside of me and where I'm at and just what I'm doing for the time being, you know. So it kind of like, um, you know, but at the same time, I feel like I've, I'm, it's like an everyday process, you know, but like reaching that
Hmm.
point of discipline, you know, and I feel comfortable where I'm at to where it's like I don't feel like I'm in my phone like at an unhealthy manner to where it's
Hmm.
too much or you know. So I feel like just over time, like I've just been able to kind of discipline myself, you know. And at the same time,
Hmm.
I'm not having I don't, and you may be able to relate. Like I'm not just talking to so many people. Like I'm not getting a lot of
Hmm.
calls or a lot of texts. So it's like the people who I am texting with or the calls I am getting, it's like it's most of the time it's there's meaning behind it, you know, and it's like it's
Right.
somebody that
Right.
like it's something for business or something from sports or something my family. So it's like, you know, I'm not just experiencing, you know, having to talk and listen and hear from everyone, you know. So I feel like that's a process that everybody's on, a journey of their own, you know, to where it's like, I do know there are a lot of people who do, you know, who kind of are addicted to their phones, you know, and are,
Hmm.
you know, just can't go without it, you know. Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I do want to kind of pivot a little bit because there was a few moments I want to bring up to you to where you kind of opened my eyes, and one of them you kind of opened my eyes, and the other one it was we experienced some tragedy together, you know, and it was pretty intimate. So first off, right after Kel's, I think when he was first kind of, we hadn't met yet, but he was like, you know, I got a friend I want to meet you, introduce you to. His name's Sylvester. He's an author. He has some published books. I think it'd be a good person for you to connect with. Woo, woo, woo. So I'm like, you know, cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, you know, but at the same time, like coming from where I'm coming from, like being from a small town in the Midwest, it's like, and maybe you can relate to when you were a little younger or a little bit less developed, you know. So when I didn't grow up with anybody around me who had written a book, you know, who has the author attached to their name. So when
Hmm.
when he was like kind of secondarily introducing you to me, he was like, there was kind of like, it wasn't any discredit to you or any doubt. I think it just wasn't
Hmm.
realistic to me that there's those of us who are authors, you know, it just wasn't realistic to where like, I don't think I took it as serious. I don't think I took, even though I didn't know you yet, I didn't take it as serious as I should have now that I've gotten to know you and meet you. Cause I'm like, you know, where I'm from, like, we don't got no authors, like, oh, like, not
Right,
that, not
right,
to take it away from, but it's like, it's just not
right, of course.
realistic where we from. So like, I kind of had to, you kind of opened my eyes without even knowing it, to where once I met you and we told each other our stories and you explained where you had came from. And, you know, at that time, I think you were finishing like your 8th book. So I'm like, not alone, let alone have I not heard of an author or grew up around an author, but to hear somebody that had published 7, 8, 9 books, like, come on, it don't even sound right, you know? So, you know, obviously once I got to meet you and you know, you kind of told me your story, and now that I've read your books and, you know, and I support you along that journey and follow you on social media, you know, it's definitely very real, you know, and you're definitely touching a lot of lives. But you know, but that was a point where I had to check myself, like, you know, there's a lot of people from where I'm from doing good things, but you know, until you've gone out and traveled and met people, you know, at that point, most of my traveling had been abroad overseas, you know, so to really, I hadn't really networked at a high level as I had now here in America. So, you know, once I met you, and I'm like, man, like you really like opened my eyes to like the possibilities of like, you know, man, we can represent in that lane. You know, we can write books. Like, you know, then you had me thinking like, man, I can write my first book, and you know, now my plan is to write multiple books. You know, similar to you. So I want to thank you for, you know, indirectly opening my eyes to that. You know,
Cool.
how has that been, like being an author? Have you I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person who has felt that way, you know, but like, just how has your journey been, you know, being a published author, and where did that idea even come from?
I mean, gratefully, I'm not the first person to do it. So, you know,
Yeah.
there's been lots of people that came before me, you know, and plenty that will come after me, like yourself. You'll be an author soon.
Mhm.
And I feel like there's a couple of things. It's an opportunity to express. You know, that's what being an author is you get to express different things. You know, words are powerful.
Mhm.
And using language and using words, you have the ability to do a lot of different things. You can entertain someone, you can persuade and convince someone, you can educate someone, you can make someone laugh, make someone cry. You can do so much with words. Relationships are healed with words. Wars are also started with words, you know, with language. Everything
Mhm.
that we do right now, us communicating is through language. We're using a vessel of language. And so I've always just felt that words are powerful, regardless of how they're being communicated, whether it's a conversation, whether it's in a sports situation, between coach and player, or between
Mhm.
players and other players. Um, in all relationships, friendships, dating, children, is your language is going to
Mhm.
create the relationship. Obviously, your actions matter too, but
Mhm.
language and actions work hand in hand. And
Mhm.
so I would say growing up, I was always like really, really addicted to the words, you know. Like when I would watch a movie, as I'm watching the movie, I would kind of memorize the lines and just
Mhm.
say
Were
the
you
words over
were
and
you a
over.
reader at an early age?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I'll read a lot all the time. I read a book every day.
Mhm.
Read every day.
When you're
Read every day or write every day.
when you're younger?
Mhm.
Mhm. And
Yeah,
see,
I would
that's
read
the
every
opposite.
day.
I would say that's the opposite of me. I remember when I was like early on, probably like second, third, fourth grade. Um, I I wasn't good at reading comprehension, you know. So I'd be reading in class, or we'd have to read something in a book, and you know, I'd read like a whole chapter or read a book. I read a chapter and I get to the end of it, I'm like, man, I don't even remember nothing I just read, you know. So that's what at an early age steered me away from reading, you know, to where I didn't begin my reading journey until I was 28, you know. So that's several years in between there where I really spent no time reading no books, you know. But it was because, you know, I'm like, man, I'm reading this, and I'm not gonna remember it, you know. To where when I got older, and when I read my first book that I would say was kind of opened up my learning curve as an adult. At that point, I done had so much experience to where it was so much easier to relate to what I was reading, you know, and a lot of times, and pretty much from that first book, it was like I was just pretty much confirming everything that I had already unknowingly and naively learned, you know. So I think it was definitely out of, you know, having that experience, that real life experience definitely helped me to where like now, you know, I'm just like, I don't gotta remember everything I read. I'm gonna just apply it. I'm gonna just be able to relate my own experience to it, you know, and then kind of subconsciously, I'll kind of just take it away naturally, you know, and kind of just continue to confirm my thoughts as well. So, I mean, so you didn't face none of that at an early age, or, you know,
No, I mean, no. I would say that I've had that experience where I've read something and I've been like,
Mhm.
man, what the hell did I
Yeah,
just read? And that's because
yeah.
I was largely uninterested in what I was reading. You
Hmm.
know, like
And that probably played a part too. Yeah.
yeah, it's like you got to think about kind of the arc of reading. It's like when you're young, very, very young, you learn to read as a skill. And then
Hmm.
it becomes something fun to do. You read before bed or you read a goofy little fun book. And then
Hmm.
there's this transition where reading then becomes like required readings for a class that
Hmm.
you're not interested in,
Yeah,
at all. So then you don't want to read because you're like, why would I read something I don't want to read?
exactly.
Uh, and then we just kind of, a lot of people just fall out of the habit of it. But like one of the things that I would invite you and anybody listening to is just not even making reading about gaining something either. Because a lot of the time we try to read books with a specific goal. I'm going to read this book because it's going to teach me something. I'm going to read this book because it's going to make me better, right? Or if we read a story, we're going to read this story because it's going to make me fall in love. But
Hmm.
like I would invite people to read just for the habit of reading, just for the practice of reading,
And
just
that's
for the
that's where
sake of
I'm that's where
coming
I'm
to
at
that.
now. Just like as
Yeah.
a everyday thing, you know, just like I'm gonna read for an hour every day, you know. So not necessarily for a reason, but just like as a form of discipline, you know, and just to continue to, you know, make my routine sturdy and sturdy, and really just pour into me as, you know, just more discipline, you know, because I like, I know like my father, he preferred like audiobooks, you know,
Mhm.
but you know, I've never really gotten into audiobooks because once I kind of took a step on my reading journey as an adult, it's kind of more lean towards just for the discipline, you know, not necessarily to learn something or to, you know, be entertained. It's like, I'm going to do this every day, you know, because it's going to, first off, this is what the people who I'm reading about do every day, you know, so like I'm going to just pour it into myself as, you know, like this is how I continue to develop my discipline. Like I'm going to open up an actual book and I'm going to read it, you know. So that's kind of how it's kind of transitioned for me.
Mhm. And it's make it make it a both. It can be both. Like you can both
Mm-hmm.
have a book that you're reading and
Mm-hmm.
you can have an audio book that that's actually what I do. I always have a physical book that I'm reading and then I
Mm-hmm.
always have an audio book, because like for example, I just came back from the doctor, and while I was driving from the doctor, that's like a 25-minute ride. So I just had an audio book playing and it's the same audio book that I listen to every single day when I get in my car. And it plays for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then
Mm-hmm.
by 2 or 3 weeks, you've consumed an audio book, but
Yeah.
then I also have a physical book that I'm reading right now too. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like that's because I don't necessarily always have, I probably do, but right now I don't necessarily have like an hour dedicated in my practice every day where I'm like, for this hour, I'm going to read. But what I like to do is I like to do the audio books every day. Every day I do an audiobook. If I get in my car, go for a walk or go to a gym, I always do an audiobook. I always try to hear some type of language
Mm-hmm.
around self, right? And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have to be self-development, but it needs to be around self. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just self-awareness. Like, so I always want to listen to something that like that, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then, and also like I'm writing a book right now too. So part of the books that I'm looking at, they're being used as a reference for what I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's a good practice to stay reading, to stay keep your head in the book. But
Mm-hmm.
also too is like here's the other thing is like I remember you saying sometimes you read it and you don't really know what to do with it. Some of the things that I like to do is I like to try to integrate what I read, right? So if I'm reading a self-help book, and let's just say they're talking about, I don't know, getting better sleep. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I like to do is whatever I'm reading, I share with other people. I'm like, hey, look, I just read this. He says I need to go to bed by 9:30. So tonight I'm going to bed at 9:30. And I'll share it. And it helps me retain the information more when I share what I'm reading as I'm reading it. I feel like it makes other people like the book too. What book are you reading? Oh, I read this book on sleep,
Yeah. And that's one thing I plan on doing, probably like in the last 4 years, since not only myself, but my wife, she was doing a lot of reading as well. But probably in the last 3 or 4 years, I probably read about probably like 50 books, probably over that span of time, and I've taken notes on all of them, and part of my plan was to, as I take this platform to the next level, is to go back on the notes that I've taken and kind of use the notes and like you said, just to share that knowledge, with that I've taken away from the books, just with people, because I know a lot of people, whether they read or not, but they need, you can never have too much guidance and sound advice, and these are great books written by great people who live great stories, so that's definitely, I've caught a few of your live Instagram lives where you've done that, to where you've been talking about, certain things that you've been reading. So definitely appreciate that. I know it goes a long way and helps a lot of people. So one thing that's maybe a little different about my reading style, do you usually read one book at a time? Or how's it? I know for me, it's like I read like 3 or 4 at a time. So like day by day, I kind of rotate and kind of, for me, it just kind of keeps it fresh. I'm not reading about the same book all the time. For me, it just, I prefer bouncing around from usually like 3 or 4 different books at a time.
Mm-hmm. I would say it depends. It actually depends. It depends on what I'm trying to do, like in my life, where I'm at, or what I need to get out of the project. So, like I say, since I'm currently working on a book proposal, I do have a couple of different books open that I'm going back and forth between referencing. But for context, one of these books, like the audiobook, I've never listened to, so I'm listening to it all the way through. The books that I'm referencing right now, I've read them both already one time. So now I'm going back out more as like a review and picking up what I need from there. When I go through something for the very first time, though, I like to immerse myself in it. I like to be all the way in it. But then once I'm all the way through it, then I will for sure reuse the books again. If I keep them, I'll reuse them again, but this time more, I'll use them as reference.
Yeah. So right now, just considering the phase that you're in with, writing your newest book and the proposal and all that, you're reading as a part of your daily routine is geared towards them being references, so your reading right now is a little bit more intentional for a reason,
right?
Where I would say my reading and through these recent years and even to this day, it's been, just to kind of gain that full perspective and just continue to round out my understanding and just to continue just to confirm myself at those highest of levels, through other individuals and different autobiographies, for the most part. So yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. That's a different perspective, just as I look to take steps towards writing my first book, to kind of maybe pick out a couple of my books that I can reference and kind of relate to my story. And, that might be something that'd be helpful to me. So yeah, another pretty intimate time that we had. This was beginning of 2020, I believe. You had invited, like me and Angeline and like 3 or 4 other couples. You invited us to brunch. I think we went to brunch. I believe was it in Old Town? I forget.
Yeah.
It was in Old Town. Yeah, that's right. So and that's something that we, like I said, we really live a pretty efficient life, but to have friends and have couple friends and to have opportunity to get together with 4 or 5 other couples who, are on their own journeys and, kind of were aligned with, in a way, that was special for us. So we were eating brunch, I don't think our meal had even arrived yet. And we kind of all started getting messages sent to our phones, and then we look up at the TV, and one of our idols, one of our mentors, somebody that we've looked up to as young athletes, it was the exact time when Kobe Bryant was in his tragic helicopter crash. Man, we got to spend that moment together, and it was an unfortunate occurrence. But I know for me, speaking from my standpoint, I'm thankful that I was there, surrounded by you guys, by that good, positive energy. I know for me, if I to receive that news, and if I would have been at home, it would have been early, so the blinds, they might not have been open yet, so it probably would have been like a first, like right when I wake up type of news, but for whatever reason, we were there together, and I know that was, I'm grateful for that, because although it was tough, and I remember, man, that was really like the first tragic experience that I experienced pretty much in my life. I've lost a couple of family members, but I was still younger, so I really wasn't as aware and as connected as I am now. So for me, I know that was my first tragic experience that I had to face, and I remember I was, pretty emotional, thankfully my wife was right there. So I remember I was kind of like just hugged into her, she kind of consoling me. We all kind of, trying to gather ourselves and kind of realize what just happened, the magnitude of what just happened, because you don't think that you're going to experience those type of moments of somebody of that stature, somebody that's had that much of effect on our lives, and then for it to happen, and it's like, man, like this, it's real, it's real, but I know for me, I was glad that I was in the presence of such positivity and just good people, good vibes, yeah, that was a tough experience. So I mean, I want to invite you to maybe share some of your thoughts of that day or that experience.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe Bryant, man, that was my childhood idol. We have the same birthday, August 23rd.
Wow, yeah, that's right. It's his birthday
Yeah,
today. Yeah, happy birthday
yeah,
to the GOAT.
yeah. We got the same birthday. When I started collecting basketball cards growing up in the 90s, Jordan, grew up in Chicago. Jordan was the guy. Everybody wanted Jordan cards.
Mm-hmm.
You had a couple of Jordan cards in your deck. Your deck was worth something.
Yeah.
And so I obviously had a lot of Jordan cards, but I love this young rookie named Kobe, man. I loved him. So the majority of my cards that I would try to trade for were Kobe. Like I had a whole bunch of Kobe Bryant rookies, man. I don't know what they're worth nowadays. I wouldn't sell them even if I could, but I just remember like being a young kid, like trading basketball cards, and just loving Kobe Bryant. And then I remember watching him play, watching him hoop. And I could just see the energy in the way he was hooping. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Like I'm him. I'm Kobe.
You're just fierce. You're just a fierce competitor.
I'm him. And then like when I actually did start playing sports, when I got on the Pee Wee football team, when I got on my high school team, and like the phrase Mamba mentality wasn't really made yet, but you knew you knew if you knew Kobe, like you knew what that energy feel was.
It's something
so, like, you were going to be a dog.
Something that he embodied that it just hadn't.
Yeah.
There hadn't been a label put onto it yet, but
you
could see it
wasn't a label
completely.
Yet. Right, and that's exactly how I chose to approach sports. Like I'm 5'9". Like I was always a shorter person, so I'm like, okay, there's going to be guys that are taller than me. There's going to be guys that are faster than me, but like I got to be a dog when I get out here on this field. Like, and also being a dog means being the smartest player. Like, I got to be the smartest player. Like, I have to know my opponent's tendencies. I have to know, like, and so I always approach sports that way. I always approach football that way from a more like methodical perspective, because I wasn't the biggest, fastest. So I had to use what I had, and I had to try to be the smartest. And then, of course, then you see later through Kobe's career, like the Mamba mentality kind of gets branded and gets marketed. And so it was like a spiritual experience for me to use it before it was a name, to know that was in me. And then to also know that like that's in him. And then obviously, as an athlete, it's like when you see it, because we had a lot of teammates. We've had teammates that can jump higher than us, run faster than us, but they can never do what we could do because they had more talent, but they didn't have more will. They didn't have more determination. They didn't have more heart. And, it's like, that's the best thing when you're playing a sport and you see, like, I think the kids now, they say he got that dog in them, like, oh, he got that dog in, like, it, like when you're out there, but those are also the best people to go against too, is like when this person just is relentless, like they won't let up. Like they're trying to bust you. It's like,
it's either going to bring the best out of you or not. So it's like, you're going to fold or you're going to step up to the plate. I know for me,
it makes
and
you
can probably relate.
like this. Yeah. I was going to say, it makes you just tap into this, like, this space in your soul that you can't really tap into in other places of life that you can tap into in sport, where it's just like, oh no, I won't allow you to beat me. Like, I can't allow that. You might beat me, but I just can't allow you to beat me. And then it just makes you morph into like a higher version of yourself. It's a crazy thing that I feel like of all the athletes, hundreds of athletes have embodied this. But when I think of one athlete who has embodied this, that's who I think of. Like, I think of Kobe Bryant, who's embodied that, just that energy and just that mindset. And so, like when you ask like how I felt, I definitely felt like, a piece of me died that day. Because like I say, man, having the same birthdays, growing up with him and just watching him and just being a big supporter of him, because I'm not really into celebrity culture. There's no one I really even follow like that. Like, he was honestly the only person I could think of that I followed my entire life, that I was like big and supported. Like when he became an author, I was so happy because I'm like, oh man, that's cool. Like, you can do something more than basketball. Like, you're not just a basketball player. Like, I was happy for him that he did that. So that day hurt, man. That day definitely hurt. That, I'm not gonna lie. Like that definitely, like I always see on Twitter, they'll say like, what celebrity death messed you up? Like, definitely Kobe Bryant for me. And I think a lot of it too is I just feel bad for his family, most importantly. Like, I don't like, forget all the talks that people want to have about, him, LeBron, and Jordan. Like, honestly, I don't care about that. Like, I as a dad, like, I just not only do I know what it's like to lose a parent, I'm always just concerned about those little girls because they're so young, They're so young. I know he has one that was older. But it's just a tough thing, man, to lose a parent. So I just worry about the girls and obviously his wife. Like, it's a very tragic thing. It's very sad.
And just being that level of athlete and just the commitment and investment that it takes on an everyday basis. I just read I seen like a little video, and it was some comments and thoughts from his wife. And like I said, just it comes with so much of a commitment to be a professional athlete. They had I'm sure they had a lot of vacations and a lot of great experiences together, but I know they were really looking forward towards, just the freedom of time that came with him having retired and just being able to manage, although he had a lot that he was planning and a lot that he was managing moving forward. But, I know she made a comment like they were just looking forward to traveling the world, and just having those times. I don't know if you follow Magic Johnson and his wife, but, they're always somewhere traveling the world, just, experiencing those different cultures and really just, like I said, that's a commitment from a whole family standpoint, even though she was the one playing, she sacrificed a lot of time and that time as well, so it's like you said, it's the world, we all lost someone that we looked up to, but she lost her husband and those children lost their father that they were just
totally different experiences.
Most intimate time with together. Yeah,
And I love how you brought up Magic Johnson. I actually was on his Twitter this morning. I actually like I don't follow him, but I mean, he's so famous that I feel like everybody follows him, if that
yeah,
makes sense, you know?
yeah,
And like I got on his Twitter somehow, and he's just like Magic Johnson's like the coolest dude. He's like, yeah, I just want to thank the 100 engineers who came out for the breakfast. Then the next day he'll post, he'll be like, hey, just sending a big shout out to, you know, LaMelo Ball. You know, here's a watch. I think Jay-Z got a watch. That's not him.
yeah,
What did Magic Johnson do? Hold on. I got to see it now. Let me go to Twitter. Like he just did something that was like, I'm like, wow, I'm like, this dude's life is amazing. Let me tell you what it did. Let me see. Hold on, don't go anywhere.
I remember he brought us when I was at Michigan State, he brought us that was when he was on the cover of 2K. He was in Lansing one day and he brought us all a copy of the 2K with him on it signed.
This is it right here, bro. He says, I had a great time in Dallas today with almost 1,000 financial advisors from a financial group. And like when I read that, I'm like, it doesn't have a lot of retweets or anything because you know how the internet works. It's just like 20 retweets.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, yo, that's like such a cool life where he just travels around and meets with all these different people and puts different words on them, tries to inspire them, tell a story, make them laugh, share some of his wisdom and whatnot. It's just like that's just a cool life, man. Like I like Magic Johnson. I like what he's done with
it's
his
just
life.
kind of that presence that comes with, you know, being accomplished at that level, you know, having persevered at that level, you know, you really, and that's something that, you know, he probably takes pride in. You know, he understands how just his presence alone, you know, and just a few words and just a smile, like it can go a long, long way. And that's one thing that I realized relatively early, and I can give you the exact moment. So I was at Valparaiso going to school, and I just was entering my first year there, you know, back at a Division I level. And we had we were being led by Homer Drew and Bryce Drew. Maybe you might be familiar. I'm sure a lot of the listeners and viewers will be. So there was this is before the season even began, and we had a community effort that we had to go volunteer at, and it was a diabetes walk. And that was like I said, I had went to a Division I school out of high school. I had to go JUCO for a year, and now I'm back at the Division I level. You know, so I really hadn't had that much experience with the community efforts part of being a college athlete. You know, so I remember I was at this diabetes walk, and we were just passing out like bottles, you know, just like that kids can fill it with water. And this is really when this is when I realized like how just the most simplest gesture of, and I have a picture of it, like just a simple gesture of handing, looking at someone in their eye, handing them a bottle, and I could really feel like the joy that they felt just from me passing them that bottle, you know. So ever since, like, as I've reflected the last few years, like I always, like, I relate back to that moment. And that's when me personally, that's when I realized like the positive effect that I could have on just anybody, whether it's a kid or whether it's an elder, just through the most simplest engagement, you know. So I've always, you know, I was raised, you know, to treat people well and to, you know, just treat people how I want to be treated, you know. So I think that was a part of my development to where like, oh, like I realized, you know, like, man, this is a gift, you know. Not only it takes being an athlete, anybody can embody this gift of, you know, just, I related to serving, being of service, you know. So that's when that spirit of serving really got instilled into me through Homer Drew and us having this community effort. And ever since then, whether it's been on like a peer-to-peer basis, or whether it's been me planning and managing community events or volunteering towards events, like that single moment is what made me realize the impact that you can have on people's lives, you know. And ever since then, I've tried to lean into that, you know, as best as I can, you know. And that's what, and you see, now that you see somebody like Magic Johnson, who, you know, probably 60, going on 70 years old, has persevered at the highest level, has accomplished at the highest levels, but he still understands and cherishes those single engagements and just how, you know, you can affect one person at a time, you know. So I know something that I've always taken pride in. That's something that I still see from people like him that still continues to inspire me. Yeah, for sure.
That's a powerful story.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I wanna hear about your yoga journey. You know, I know you kind of immersing yourself in that. So I wanna talk about that, and then we can finish on. I have 2 of your books right here. I'm gonna just open them to random pages, and I'm gonna just read what's on the page and kind of just see, you know, where those quotes take you, you know, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
As most of you who are listening, viewing may know, going on 3 months ago, my wife was in a car accident and she transitioned from this realm. So about 2 weeks later, my good friend Sylvester, who we're listening to now, he reached out to me and asked me, did I want to go to yoga with him? You know, and yoga has been a part of my routine for quite some time, part of my wife and I's routine together. We've done yoga all over the world, all these different countries, very, very intimate times through yoga, and we really understand the effects of yoga, you know, and how just having yoga as a part of your routine can go a long ways. So again, thank you for that invite. You know, that was at a time when, as you can imagine, a lot of people were reaching out to me and, you know, making sure I was doing all right, you know, and in good spirits and sending their condolences. But one thing that stuck out to me, and just knowing about you and what you do for a living, you know, you not only are you an author, but you're a life coach as well. You know, I'm sure you mentor kids or have mentored kids throughout your journey, you know, so for me, I knew that shortly after that, I would probably be having a conversation with you, you know, because you are someone who I respect and I look up to, and, you know, I know has always given me some well-rounded advice from your perspective. So one thing that stood out to me at that time period that I was in, was, you know, I was expecting to have a conversation with you while we went to yoga or before or after, and, you know, but what kind of stood out to me was, and this may have been intentional on your part or not, you know, but to me it seems like you were under the understanding, like, you know, and which you even ended up telling me after another conversation a few weeks after that, was like, you know, it was going to come out sooner or later, and we were going to be able to share on that experience sooner or later. But what meant a lot to me, and not because the opposite affected me any negative way, you know, people reaching out and sending their condolences, but at the same time, it was like, you know, when you go through an experience like that, it's like it's good to have some times when you're kind of disconnected from that experience, where it's not time to talk about that experience, you know, and that's not to, like I said, take away from other people's intentions, because I know it was all out of love and support, you know, but it was good to go to yoga, you know, chop it up on the way to yoga about the playoffs, you know, go in there, have a great yoga session, leave the yoga session, you know, chop it up some more about offense and defensive schemes, and, you know, a little bit, just some other things, you know, but can you still hear me? There we go. You know, so it was cool to have that experience, you know, to kind of detach completely, you know, from the experience I just went through with my wife, you know. So thanks again for that invite. And you can share a little bit on that. You know, I know that's kind of a lot, but I want that to lead into, you know, I know you're taking yoga a little bit more serious. You mentioned that you understand the lack of a practice such as yoga, specifically in our community, as being minorities and being men. So maybe you can comment on that and kind of just share your where the thought of even taking yoga even seriously came from, and kind of where you maybe see that leading you.
Yoga is is a gift. It's an opportunity to connect mind, body, soul, spirit. Yoga means union, connection, to bring everything in union. And life experiences that we have and life itself will often bring us out of sync, out of connection, out of union. Yoga brings you in tune with your breath. It brings you to the moment. It brings you, it's more than just, a lot of people think yoga is like poses. The asana practices, the movement practices, they help. And that's a limb of yoga, but there's 8 limbs of yoga. And so yoga is about reaching that God-like consciousness. It's about reaching a place of inner peace. And that's the whole purpose of yoga. And so when, I find out that your family is going through something very shocking, and I would imagine that, just going back to that time period when we went to yoga, it's like, I imagined that you were probably overwhelmed. And so the position that I was in, I didn't want to overwhelm you any further than you already were. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I wanted you to know that, that I could be there for you in a capacity. And I didn't really know what capacity either. Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to assume, I just offered to take you to yoga, which I felt like, I feel like when a person is in the middle of going through something that could be overwhelming, or that may be, and I'm not saying you're overwhelmed, but that's just what I was thinking. I was thinking he might be overwhelmed mm-hmm. with everything that's going on. I feel like yoga, even if it's only for 1 hour, I feel like yoga is a practice that can help a person process mm-hmm. and help a person come back to their body, because the purpose of yoga is God-like consciousness. It's mm-hmm. God-like union. So I just felt like it was a gift to be able to share yoga with you, to share something that has saved my life. I feel like, to be able to share that with you.
Yeah, both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that was what was going on with my mindset then. For me now, I've been doing yoga for 10 years. When I transitioned away from playing football, I got into yoga, lifting and yoga. That's what I primarily do now. And I was in San Diego last July and got a yoga teacher training. So I'm completely certified. And that was really good, because I wanted to get a better understanding of like anatomy and like the formula for how things work the way that they work, as far as
congratulations on that.
Yeah, appreciate it. And there's other things we learned there. We learned about different modalities, like different types of breath work that you can do to facilitate different reactions in your body. Like you can literally heat your breath. You can cool your breath. So if you're really hot and you need to cool down, you can turn to your breath to cool down, or vice versa. We learned things like just about different energy fields in the body. We learned about the different meditation practices, and so it was just really cool to like get all that information so I can integrate it and use it into my own practice, as well as offer. It's medicine, and that's what we're all trying to do. All right, we're all trying to figure out what type of medicines we can offer people to help them heal, to help them transcend, whatever they may be going through in their life. And so the last question you asked me was about in the Black community. Yeah, I mean, growing up in the South Side of Chicago, I never saw a yoga studio, not one time. Yeah, it was like when I hear the word yoga, I think like everybody else. Oh, stretching, and then you just think, you're like, well, we're stretching. Well, what is stretching? It's like, who cares about stretching, right? Like, stretching is just something we bullshit before practice. Bullshit stretching, and then we get to practice. And if I can do my whole life over, one of the things that I will first of all tell my younger self, stop it, boy, go stretch. Stop skipping your stretches. Stop thinking it's weak, like I would invite myself.
To kind of veer off. So that's because that's that mindset, believe it or not, that's not only the young generation that have that mindset. I have so many teammates at this time, this level that have been, that's like, y'all still don't stretch. Like, you still don't understand
Right.
the meaning behind stretching, and just the ability to control, to a lot of injuries come from lack of stretching, and just what I've learned is like stretching in itself, but to kind of evolve into yoga, it comes down to discipline and patience, and a lot of players that I've experienced just don't have the patience to just sit there and stretch out. It's like you want to get to it too fast, so it's like,
yeah, but see, also that comes from what we're taught is going to get us the reward. And so, like, as a football player, what we're taught is bigger, faster, stronger. So you need to get out there, you need to squat, you need to deadlift, you need to do sprints, and you need to learn how to tackle people. Like, that's how you're taught. But the truth of the matter is, what we're working with the anatomy. We are working with the body. And so, as athletes, we have to recognize that we're actually scientists of our own. And if anybody's listening and wondering about my athletic background, I walked onto a Division I football team, played 3 years professional arena football. So I have an athletic background. And so what people need to recognize, it's not just about the prime movers. It's not just about your glutes and your quads and your chest. Like, it's about a full activation of your breath, of breathing, of your core, of moving in different positions. It's not just moving forward. It's about moving laterally, right? In rotation, decelerating and rotating. It's about how is your
breath. The breath in itself is so overlooked.
Right.
So many people that don't even realize that they're like, you're not even conscious of your breath.
Sports and they're not.
When's the last time you took a full deep breath intentionally, let alone 5 or 10 of them in a row? But just that in itself can set your day up and change your mood.
Another thing with sports is like so you learn this in yoga, is like you learn, meditation, but you also learn concentration and you learn imagination. And so literally imagining yourself before you even get on your court, before you start to warm up, before you get on the field, imagining yourself going through your routes, going through your if you're a quarterback, going through reading the defense, going through your cadence, literally envisioning it and seeing it as it happens. Like, studies show that people who imagine and use their imagination, they perform better. So like, that's one of the things I would say, that it is definitely getting better. I would say, in comparison to when I started sports and when you started sports versus now, is like I see a lot of people using more imagination when it comes to athletics. But yeah, I mean, like, I know the way that it's brought up, and like we were talking about Kobe Bryant, for example. I know it's brought up like, oh yeah, you need to be in the gym 8 hours a day, getting up jump shots. Steph Curry gets up 100 jump shots before he takes a shit in the morning. Like, we know that these stories are the famous stories, like these work hard stories are the famous stories that will always be prominent, right? Like, we know that. And I want to invite people to recognize that spending an hour a day doing yoga, connected with your breath, strengthening your core, elongating your spine, your muscles, reaching, breathing into your body and getting that godlike consciousness. Not only is it going to help you with injuries, it's going to help you with performance, it's going to help you with sleep, it's going to help regulate your moods, which will actually just make you a better person for the people you're interacting with. It'll also help you with studies because it helps you decrease anxiety as well. So for any athlete that will tune into this and they're like just curious about yoga, like, yes, it's going to help you performance-wise with your sports. But when you're done playing a sport and you still need to keep your body moving, yoga is going to be something that you can do forever.
Yep. No, 100%. No, I appreciate that. All right, so real quick, got 2 books right here. I got Care Package and Lust for Life. I'm just open to a random page and read the page and just see where it takes you, or what it takes you back to, or what you can expand on. So I'll start with Care Package, A Path to Deep Healing. So let me see. All right, so there's 2 quotes on this page 160. So I'm gonna read both of them. I'll start with the first one. Life is survival of the fittest. If people are doing things that are killing them, that doesn't mean you have to participate. save yourself?
Yeah, I remember when I wrote that, I was actually talking about the disconnect that I was having with the American food system and how we eat. Specifically, when I say we as Black people, just growing up where we grow up, is the way that we eat food is. Uh, I just feel like we lack a lot of portion control, a lot of understanding of the actual ingredients, and then just America's food system in general have they. We could do a whole podcast on that, but they've done so much to decrease the potency and the naturalness of the food that we're eating. And I just feel like that I remember writing that at a point where I was telling myself, you have to take care of your body. Like you have to be willing to pay more for organic food, or you have to be willing to get up on Sunday morning and go to the farmer's market. Like I remember telling myself to take serious care of myself. And that's so funny because last week I went and got my allergies tested for environmental to know what's going on in my body. And just today I went and got my food allergies tested to know, okay, if I put this in my body, is it causing inflammation? You know, like I still am on that path of trying to make sure that I'm living optimally and just taking care of myself. So yeah, that's cool. That was a cool one to bring up.
Nice. Kind of relates. I'll read the second one at the bottom of the page. If you fight for it, I'll fight with you. If you don't want to fight for it, then I have to find someone who wants it as bad as I do.
We grow up in these environments where we think we have to fight for other people's love and approval. And like once we prove to ourselves or prove to them that we're worthy, then we'll get it. And that is toxic. That is a dangerous mindset. It should not have to be like that. It should not have to be I gotta prove I love you. You gotta prove it to me. I'm done with that. Do you like me or no? You do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like you too.
Yeah.
Let's vibe. That's it. Like, and that's not even like I'm not even saying that necessarily in dating. I'm just saying it could be dating, it could be relation, it could be friendship. It's like, you like me? I like you. Okay, cool. Let's hang out. Like it should be simple. It shouldn't be like let me break my back to convince this person that I'm cool. Like, no, we're done with that. That comes from codependency. That comes from like, not believing and trusting and what you're offering. And then it also just comes from being out of alignment. When you're in alignment with the wrong people, you're gonna chase the wrong people, you know. But when you're in alignment with your morals and your goals, not even goals, I should just say your value system. When you're in alignment with your value system, you will meet people, you'll meet everybody, but you'll feel more called to the people you meet who align with your value system, who align with where you're trying to go and what you're looking to do. And then there is no forcing or tricking or trying to get you to, see my work. It's like, I don't have to get you to see my work. You see it or you don't. So I feel like with this mindset, there's so much less tension and there's just so much more space to play with this mindset.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. It's on point, bro. All right, so now we'll finish with this. Your the other book that I have out, Lust for Life, international best-selling author. Let's see. Page 272. You love in such a deep way that you should never settle for just anybody, just to say that you have somebody. Your love is rare, it heals, and it uplifts people when they feel broken or down. Find the person who is your other half, the person who makes you feel like you are whole. Find the person who loves just as hard as you, the one who will not make you look stupid for being loyal to them.
Oh, that cool right there. That's a fireball right there.
That boy on point, like man. Boy, he on to something.
I like that one because I went through that experience where, I was in a relationship with a lady who she just vibrationally just wasn't where I was at. And I don't say that to create a hierarchy to say that I'm above her or I'm better than her or nothing like that. It's just where I wanted to go, just from like a relationship perspective. I just didn't feel like she had the energy to do it, like we just weren't aligned. And I honestly used to just feel, I just used to feel stupid, like, for loving her. I used to be like, man, I'm wasting my time. Like, that's how I used to feel, like, internally. And
Mhm.
like, I just used to remember saying to myself, like, man, I just want to be with someone where I don't feel stupid loving them.
Mhm.
Like, you ever, I don't think you do any sports betting, but, you made a bet before, like, like, bet who's gonna win, this team or that team. And
Mhm.
it's just like, you bet on a team and then they lose, and you just feel dumb after. You're like, man, I should not have bet $10 on these fools, man. They don't never do nothing.
Yeah.
It's like that's how I felt in that relationship
Mhm.
with her. I'm like, why am I putting $10 on her? She gonna make me lose my money, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna be disappointed. It's like a double loss, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I just remember like that feeling of like, nah, I gotta be with somebody else. And like, it's funny, it's like in there I said be with your other half. I would never write something like that today because I don't agree with that type of thing because I feel like it's limiting. Because what I feel is I feel like everybody brings something out of you. Every person brings
Mhm.
something different out of you.
Mhm.
And so I would word that a little differently if I wrote it today, simply because I just don't want to, it sounds beautiful, it's poetically beautiful. But I just want people to recognize that like everybody brings something out of you. You might not be my better half, but you might be someone who inspires me. You might be someone who pushes me, who
Mhm.
even just accepts me and loves me for me. And that's more than enough. I
Mhm.
just think sometimes as poets, and I'm obviously guilty of that, like as poets, we can get away with saying things like that, but we don't
Mhm.
recognize it's like that actually puts a lot of pressure on someone. It's like,
Mhm.
hey, you should imagine showing up to your a first date with someone and you're like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Yeah, I just got off my job. How are you doing? They're like, oh yeah, I just got off of work too. How are you? And then your first question, before your first question, you're just like, yeah, just so you know, I'm here to find my other half. It's like, hold
Yeah.
on, partner.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get a drink and get to know each other. Why are you putting all this pressure on it? So yeah, that's just a little writer's remix. I would just say find someone who inspires you, someone who, you don't have to look silly for being with, someone that probably makes you laugh, and
Mhm.
someone that makes you think a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that what we all want?
That's
To
no,
laugh a little,
that's
think a little.
that's a special thing to find, and when you find it, dude, don't take it for granted, for sure. So I know I'm grateful to have found that one, who I would consider my soulmate, so someone
Mhm.
who kind of I was aligned with from the beginning, someone that wanted to help people, generally just as I did, someone that continued to grow and understand their purpose, and someone that was open to take risks, and to, just go with the flow, along this journey of life, and I'm sure you can relate, um with your significant other Daisy and the journey
Mhm.
that you're on, so that's definitely a special thing that I feel like, everyone deserves. We don't really deserve nothing, but it's something that I hope that everyone gets to experience, because it's an amazing feeling. And
No, we
it's
do deserve it. Damn it, we deserve
yeah,
it.
yeah, true. We all do deserve it, for sure. But I
Yeah.
just I hope everyone gets that feeling, because it is very, very special, and it's the journey in itself. It's you get to grow with each other. You get to understand deeper levels of each other, of yourself, and you get to heal with each other together, simultaneously, and continue to mold into one, So it's, if you are still on that journey, looking for that one, keep the hope, because it's
And I,
out there.
I I know there's some young men listening to this too. I know there's a lot of young athletes too. I want to comment on something because
Please do.
I see it. I see a lot of people online talking about what men should be and shouldn't be, and
Hmm.
um, there's a lot of people have a lot to say, and more specifically, I'm more concerned with speaking to maybe there's those young men who maybe they didn't grow up with a great relationship with their mother or father. Um, Maybe they didn't grow up in the best environment. Maybe there's some adversity there, whether it just be family splitting up. Maybe they have addicts. Maybe they have trauma. Maybe they have death and tragedy. And I just want to speak to them, because that's where I come from. That's the lens that I come from. And so my lens of seeing the world is a little bit different when I see people like, oh, well, this is a man, this is a man. It's like, well, you know, getting it home at night made me a man where I came from. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like getting home safely made me a man, making sure that I didn't get caught up in with gang members and doing drugs and like that made me a man where I came from. So I don't when I look at this social media stuff, I get concerned because I'm like, wow, I was like, y'all don't really have full perspective of what everybody's going through. It's like there's sometimes we're not eating. So if I brought food home, that made me a man, right? So I just want to say to people, especially to these young boys, try not to listen to what other people on the internet are saying about what constitutes being a man. Um, and also recognize that if you're a boy, you're a boy, and it's okay to be a boy, and it's
Mhm.
okay to still be growing and maturing. And you don't have to be in a rush to try to grow up, to try to be, if you're 16, 17, please don't be saying to yourself, I need to be the man of the house. It's like, I understand if
Mhm.
you're saying that, but please maybe invite yourself to recognize, like, well, I am 16. Like, I am still a teenager. I feel like I have a man body, but I am still a teenager. I'm allowed to like go to a school dance. Like I'm allowed to play video games. I'm
Mhm.
allowed to like eat this donut. I know that I need to be on my training schedule. I need to go to sleep. I need to be disciplined. I know I lived it. I
Mhm.
lived it. But like you're also allowed to have a donut. If you want to eat some goldfish, you're allowed to have goldfish. You're allowed to still go to the sleepovers and watch cartoons and stuff. Like I'm more concerned with before we try to put all these boys in boxes to be a man, I'm more concerned with allowing them being a boy first,
Mhm.
because a lot of us, we don't get that. Like we just have to grow up. We're watching our sister or watching our brother where our parents are gone. They're not in the house. So my invitation to you young boys is try to protect your boyhood, try to protect your childhood, try to enjoy it if you can. And when you come into your manhood, the only thing I can say is this: just get rid of your ego. Just get rid of your ego. Try to figure out who you can collaborate with and who you can work with.
Mhm.
Because as you grow, um, your ego will definitely get in the way of your progress. And in sports, we need ego. Like we need to know, like, oh man, this motherfucker can't touch me. He can't do nothing with me. Like we need ego there. But in the real world, when you're trying to make integrated relationships, you're trying to raise a kid, you're trying to start a business, you want to travel the world, it's like you might travel somewhere you don't know nothing. You might need to ask somebody, hey, how do I say this? Like you can't have ego there.
Mhm.
You might get, and I know guys on the internet have all these crazy things to say about women and how you should look at women and this and that. And I'm not here to say any of that. What I'm here to say is when you treat people with respect, when you treat people with love, people are going to come to you and treat you like that.
Mhm.
So if you're listening to any guys who are teaching you game and they're teaching you all these tricks and stuff that you have to play, I'm just here to tell you, if you play games, you'll get games. But if you want real, genuine people who actually care about building healthy, integrated relationships, start that process here in you, and then the other people around you will mimic that. And I just want to say that because I know you have a lot of young athletes who listen. I was an athlete, and I feel like I'm a grown man. I'm getting there. So I just wanted to share those words, man. That's my closing remarks.
No, I appreciate that, and like you said, it's a journey for all of us, and it's a journey that you have to intentionally go on, within yourself. I know speaking just like where we come from, I'm fortunate to have had both my parents in the household who raised me together. Not that their relationship was perfect, and not that they didn't subject us, my sister and I, to um, several experiences that we didn't know really what was going on, but kind of we knew it was an unfortunate experience. So I know I'm aware of that. And speaking to us specifically as young boys and young men who are transitioning into manhood, a lot of us didn't have those examples of what it meant to be a man, and let alone to become a husband. So I know
Hmm.
for me, it's been I was thankful to have found my soulmate early, to where we understood that she understood that I wasn't a man yet, but she didn't put those expectations on me. I understood that she was a young woman and she was probably developed a little bit more as a woman and as a wife than I was as a man and as a husband. But it was something that we understood together that, you know, okay, we're not fully prepared to be what would probably be perceived as a husband and a wife or a man, a woman, but you know, we love each other, we appreciate each other, and we respect each other. So let's go on this journey together, you know, and not to say that we didn't have tough times to where things could have went different. You know, we were separated for a whole year at one point, you know, so it was a journey that we had to really trust each other and trust where I had to trust where she was as a woman. She had to trust and understand where I was as a man. But at the same time, what helped me and what helped her was our ability to communicate and to be open and to be transparent and to, you know, be honest, you know, and speak on things that, you know, might not be comfortable, but it's like, I know this is where I am as a young man, as a growing boy. And I respect my wife because she always understood that. And not that things came along with that she didn't agree with or that I wasn't proud of, but she always understood me and I was always straightforward with her. So at the end of the day, we communicated from the beginning and we gave each other a little bit of space to be able to continue to grow and develop, you know, to where we found ourselves where we were, you know, right before this recent experience to where we, you know, I feel like I've fully developed into a man and into a husband, thanks to her guidance. And she was able to fully develop into a woman, into a wife, thanks to my guidance. So it was something that we came in together and it wasn't perfect from the beginning and it wasn't perfect through to the end, you know, of her and us being together in this realm. But it was a journey that we were on together, you know, and one thing I could take away from my parents and from my experience growing up with them, you know, they would get into it. They'd be fussing and fighting and doing this and doing that, you know, but at the end of the day, or maybe the next day, like they always ended up back together and back cool and back friends, you know. So that's something that I always would take away from my parents and their relationship is that, you know, yeah, they'll go through their situations, you know, they'll go through this, go through that, you know, from both sides, you know, but what I always notice is like that night or the next night, like my sister and I were always sitting there right in front of the TV and my mom and dad were sitting back together on the couch. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that helped me to realize, you know, yeah, you can go through anything, but like, you know, you can go through it together, you know, and they probably definitely didn't have the mental and emotional fortitude to persevere as my wife and I did, but I would want to let them know that I recognize that, and just that in itself, you know, helped me at a foundational level, you know, to where I was able to lead and guide my marriage at another level, you know. So it's just like, you know, I say that to say I appreciate, you know, how I was raised and how they, you know, they went through those tough times, not most of the time, not for their own sake, but just to be there and be that example and be that leadership that my sister and I needed, you know. So I'm aware that most of us didn't have those examples of what it meant to be a man or a woman or a husband or wife. But, you know, and as you're probably learning too, that's the journey to fulfill that and to become that. It's all in the journey, you know, it's all in the getting through those tough times and knowing how to, you know, hold each other accountable, but understand each other at the same time to where there's that buffer of respect at the end of the day. So that's kind of my perception and lens based on, you know, what I appreciate you for sharing, because it's needed, you know, and it's and us being, you know, Black men, you know, I feel like we need it more than most, you know. So I hope the listeners and viewers who find themselves in that demographic, you know, from an early age, or even as grown men and women who are older and elder than us, who are still on that journey to become a man, you know, because you learn that age age is really just a number, you know,
Right.
and the understanding and the development and the space you find yourself in, it comes from being very, very intentional, you know, on a daily basis. And in whatever role you're in, whether it's an athlete, whether it's an author, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a husband, whether it's a wife, whether it's a mom, dad, like that's an everyday journey, you know. So I encourage, just like you did, I encourage people to, you know, first off, go within themselves and make sure you're on the journey you need to be as a man or as a woman in order to bring what you need to bring to the table. My boy, with that being said, this wraps up the first episode of Inside the NeighborWood. Thank you again to my guest, my good friend, Sylvester McNutt. Maybe you want to end on, you know, letting people know where they can reach out to you. I know I've sent a lot of people your page and sent, you know, a lot of people your quotes, you know, and you're someone that, you know, always shares that positivity and even shares the stuff that, you know, sometimes you don't want to read or want to learn or want to hear, you know, but you understand that, you know, it's necessary to get uncomfortable when you see what comes from getting uncomfortable, you know. So please share where people can find you and reach out to you.
Yeah, you could just type my name in, Sylvester McNutt, and whatever you love will come up, whether it's like Instagram, Twitter. If you don't use social and you just want to get connected, you can go to my site. I have an email list where I send different content out to my email list, and got the podcast. So yeah, I would say maybe just come to the website and look around there and see what calls me.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it again. Thanks again, bro. And to all the viewers and all the listeners, man, this is a journey that I'm just getting started. So I'm learning and I'm getting practice and I'm getting reps in as well. But for this to be the first episode, I feel good about it, you know, and I'm glad I was able to kick it off with someone who I respect and someone I look up to and look to for continued guidance. So thanks again, bro, for jumping on Inside the NeighborWood. Much love, bro.
Appreciate it. Yes.